The next thing that we talk about is relationships, is having at least one person in your life that you know you can go to if something goes wrong. And that's an emotional connection, but it's also a physical connection. So I would say it's like somebody that you can call upon to say, I'm having the worst day of my life, but also somebody you can call upon to say, I just broke down on the side of the road and I need someone to come pick me up. And that might not be the same person. So are you consciously developing those kinds of relationships and having the conversations that it takes? Like you it's really important, I think, to have the conversation and say, can I count on you when I need it to call on you? And I do have those conversations with people, particularly like really old friends, and just say, you know, and you don't have to ask. You could say, you're the person that I really want to reach out to the most when things are going wrong. Is that okay? Do you feel okay doing that? And 9 times out of 10, they're like, hell yeah, of course, because I want you to do the same thing for me. So I just say like having those conversations with people and making sure that you're on the same page. Because sometimes you will reach out for somebody and they are not there. I think that has happened to me many times where the person you thought was going to be there for you is like, whoa, 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 that's too much for me. I'm not strong enough for that.
Yeah, I think I had that. I had a similar moment with my parents, and I don't think it's uncommon, but to realize some people in your life are good for some things and they're not good for other things. Um, and I mean, in that same way, like realizing I'm probably great if like you want to have a really serious talk or like you need some advice or like you need just someone to listen. I'm not the person that you grab to go out and have fun, on a Friday night or on the weekends or you take to a party. I'm just not.
No,
But
you're right. Right.
with my parents, I think it was difficult to find emotional safety or emotional connection with them.
Same.
And so my parents were always like, you need anything, we got you. You always have a roof over your head. Just let us know.
Hmm.
But as soon as you start talking about feelings,
Hmm.
oh wait, no, that's not us.
Yeah.
And I would say people who are there for you physically is really important to have. So, like, we were kind of just talking about protection and your environment and everything. And I think an extension of that is the relationships that you have, knowing that you can go to somebody's house if your power cuts off
Yeah.
or like when the power goes off or like and you have a food or a fridge full of food you don't want it all to go bad, like, hey, can I bring over the
Hmm.
the 5 chickens I just bought
Hmm.
because they were on sale and
Right.
they don't go to waste. But then people that offer you the emotional connection or mental connection or spiritual connection, and
Hmm.
I think sometimes we forget about those
Yeah.
and maybe sometimes focus too much on romance. And
Yeah.
so,
Yeah.
I think the younger you are, the more it seems like the more you feel like those relationships have to be revolved around some sort of romance.
Hmm.
It seems like the older the person that I talk to, the more that they are valuing um, other forms of connection.
Hmm.
And I think if you're a young person listening to this right now, I would say don't, the romance and everything is like something you want. And I think that's natural. Your hormones are going and everything. And it's a very natural thing for you to want. But I would say don't underinvest in other relationships in your life.
Yeah.
People that you can talk to, people that you just want to be friends with, people that if you had kids, like you'd want your kids to play with their kids.
Hmm.
Um, and professional relationships as well. And I
Hmm.
think sometimes we overvalue certain forms of relationship because it brings the most pain. And I think romance typically brings the most pain. But you'll be in that same boat if you don't invest in other types of relationships as well. Just it'll just be down the road. And that's what I'm hearing from the people that I'm talking to, but that's also what I'm realizing as well. Because I'm someone who never prioritized really relationships at all.
Mm.
Just like I can do everything by myself. I'm good. And then I think as I'm getting older, I'm realizing, well, that's not exactly true. I do need people around. And even if I was good, my kids still need friends.
Right.
And like we still need to be involved in something.
Yeah, and I think that requires, so some people might say, well, where do I go to find these relationships? It requires stepping out a little bit, finding like when I was my son was little, I would take him to dance classes or baseball classes or whatever. And I would have conversations with parents there, particularly like he would gravitate towards certain kids, and that doesn't always work out, but it's happened to work out. Actually, my son just graduated from high school 2 weeks ago, and we took these four kids. They've been friends from the time they took this dance class when they were like 3 years old, and now they just graduated from high school, and they're great. I like their parents. We're good friends now. Would I have picked them out to be friends if it wasn't for this dance class that the kids went to? Probably not. But it just, let circumstances bring you together and be open-minded about, who these other people are. I'm part of this group of mental health professionals that are, most of them are retired. And so they have become, some of the members in that have become mentors for me. I think that's extremely important to have those kind of older mentors and wise people who can give you advice. But it can be hard to develop relationships. And there's some questions that you can ask that can start to develop deeper friendships. Just be one of those people who, like, every once in a while, like my son does this, just asking stuff like, well, what did he ask me the other day? Would you rather know how you die or when you're going to die? Right. And that's a kind of silly question, and who knows what there's no correct answer or whatever, but it gets you talking about things in a deeper way. And those are just kind of fun little questions that you can use to get to know people deeper. But you have to get out there. You have to push yourself a little bit, because if it were up to me, I'd sit in my house all day long. I'm introverted that way.
So this might deserve its own episode deep dive at a separate date, but I am curious. I think most of my individuality, wanting to do everything my own, putting up walls, not forming relationships. I think that, well, it's part of trauma.
Mm,
And I think part of that was trying to protect myself, or at least if I do have relationships, I don't get too close. And what I realized as I got older is it's not like I didn't want relationships. I actually didn't know how to form relationships, and I didn't know how to maintain relationships.
mhm,
I think the pressure of it, the anxiety of it, the like, what do they think of me? Like, I don't like what they said and I don't know how to address it. I don't know how to communicate about it.
mhm.
All of those things just felt like too much, to the point where I just wouldn't even try. For the people that, are listening and are already here, and this might be a question. Um, if if you have a hard time forming, or maybe even maintaining relationships because of something that's happened in the past, or just an internal fear, how how do you start?
Yeah, it's such a great question. The way that I look at it is, keep in mind, always have a light touch. And what I mean by that is, if you say to yourself, look, I want to have more friends, I want to have more of relationships, I want my relationships to be deeper, come at it with a light touch, meaning venture out a little bit. Give yourself, say to yourself, okay, I'm going to go to this party and I'm going to stay for a half an hour and I'm going to talk to one person. That's all. Just don't give yourself a lot of pressure to go in and be the life of the party, or to make a bunch of friends, or to say the right thing all the time. Just give yourself very simple little tasks, little assignments to do. I'm going to go and I'm going to sit in this restaurant by myself for a meal. And I'm going to bring a book that's interesting, and maybe somebody will ask me about it. If I see somebody that's eating by themselves, and they're nearby, maybe I'll just smile or nod or something like that. It's just doing these little small steps, not expecting that you're going to have in one day, you're going to, all of a sudden meet a bunch of people and everything's going to be okay. And just take the pressure off of yourself. And what that does for the person on the receiving end is, people will feel that you're coming at this with a very light touch, and that helps them to feel safer as well. Always remember that most people, unless they're extremely extroverted, are probably feeling very similar to you. I don't know you. I'm not sure how I feel about you. I'm worried about what you're going to think about me. What should I tell you about myself? Will I scare you away? Will you think I'm a dork? All of these things are running through other people's heads as well. So with a light touch, you are opening the door a little bit, and you're hopefully allowing them to open the door a little bit, and then give it time. Let things develop in their own time. If you're sitting back going, when are they, how come they didn't call me? I thought they said they were going to invite me to this party and they never did, blah, blah, blah. You can reach out and say, hey, how's it going? Just, I'm going to be doing X, Y, or Z. Do you want to come along? And if they don't respond, you let it go. Again, it's that light touch. And eventually what you'll find is that if you try too hard, you're going to scare people away and you're going to frustrate yourself. So if you do it slowly and you allow things to develop, I think you're going to find that things will work out. But you have to go out there. You have to join a class, um, uh, start doing, something outdoorsy, figure out like what your hobbies are, find people who do things that you like to do. And even if you're parallel playing for a long time where you're doing your thing and they're doing their thing, eventually the relationship will develop, but you have to give yourself a light touch, go out and try something, go back in and be safe. Go out and try something, go back in and be safe. And that's relationships. That's how they work, in my experience.
One of my biggest issues has probably been maybe not coming on too strong, but maybe a mixture of maybe sometimes coming on too strong or trying to, or having too big of expectations out of someone or
Yeah.
myself.
Hmm.
And I think, kind of like you said, if you take it step by step, not only do you give things the space and the chance to develop and maybe even naturally, but I keep picturing myself like you bite off more than you can chew, and then that becomes too overwhelming for you. And so you don't pursue the relationship anymore because or you lash out, you do whatever because like it became too much and you blew it up.
Hmm.
And then you have to start from scratch and then or you have to mend the relationship then. But if like you said, kind of just take it slow. You have a light touch. It also makes it more manageable for you given where your social skills may be at.
Well, they're just remembering this. Someone told me this once, and I think it's really good advice that there's you and there's the other person, and then there's a relationship. And think of it like a plant. And neither of you are in full or should be in full control of the relationship. It's its own living thing that develops on its own. You can feed it, you can observe it, you can care for it, but think of it like its own entity. So don't take it personally if the plant dies. It is a product of both of you. So if you're trying to make it, by yourself, you're trying to grow it, or you're aggressively overwatering it and fertilizing it too much and putting it out in the sun too much, then you're going to damage it. So think of it like as a third entity in the relationship in between the two of you, and all it's going to do is feed off of whatever you give it that is right for it, and you may not know what's right for it. You may come on too strong. You may not come on strongly enough. And you've got to let it develop the way it's going to develop. And if it dies, it dies. If it grows, it grows. You do what you think is the best for it. Treat it like a delicate thing that you are not 100% in control over, I guess is the best way to put it. Does that make sense?
It takes two people to make it work. And I think if you take on 100% of the pressure from it, well, you're taking on more than you're responsible for.
Yes.
And a 50% that you're not going to be able to control, and there's no use stressing out about that.
Well, and the problem is that our anxiety will cause us to do, and I know I've done this, my anxiety about whether the relationship's going to work, whether it's a romantic or a friendship, can kill it with like I said, over watering it, over much attention to it and things like that. And if I could have realized at the time that this is something that's got to be organically happening. And I can do certain things, but I can't force it to grow. And I have to observe what are the characteristics of this relationship. Some are, very strong immediately and grow really fast. Some are like little buds, and if you do the wrong thing, poof, it's gone. And so you have to be sensitive to what is the quality of this thing that is growing between us and not try to infuse it with your own desires and images of what it should be, because that kills the natural production that this thing is going to have, this natural growth that it's going to have. That's how I kind of look at it. And I think that's been very helpful for me to just lower anxiety about whether relationships should or could work.
I could probably we will have to revisit this down the road
Yeah,
because
we can talk more about it.